Syracuse has been reaching out to the underserved population for at least 3 years. Am I right, Joan?
Yes.
Okay, so we're calling on them to present first so we can hear what they've done. I believe you're going to share some pictures.
Yes.
Okay, and maybe you do have some statistics for us to see if you've made an impact. Okay, Joan, the screen is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, 4 years ago, because we're now in 2021, we started this frustration of registering voters that didn't show up at the polls. So our number of registrations were going up, but when we looked with the Board of Election, the percentage of registered voters was staying the same and sometimes going down. So working with the Board of Elections, and that's been a process that didn't happen overnight. But we have a wonderful working relationship with them now and have for probably 10 years, but it took a long time to get there. We researched what to do, how to get out the vote, and we found face-to-face, door knocking, visible signs as reminders as one of the best strategies to use. So that's what we've been doing. From the Board of Elections, we gained information on what the lowest areas and wards and districts of voter turnout of registered voters. And we then looked at those and we went into a very high poverty area with very low turnout. We did see, because we can go back to the Board of Elections and we can find out what percentage that particular area had in the same type of election. So if it's a national election, we can go back to the last national election and see what the turnout was. And the first year we did it, the rate went up about 48%, which was wonderful. But there's high turnover in that area too. And most of us involved in this didn't live in the area. We did have a diverse group, but we weren't from the area. So it was a learning curve that we all had to do. We use signup.com. It's free if you just have one person administering. And it's a place where you can send out a link and people can go in and sign up for the events they want to be. That way you gather statistics and data on who showed up, how many volunteers, how many volunteer hours, and what type of locations, because you, as the administrator, I can go back and run reports on that site. So it's an excellent way for us to see what kind of number of people and the sites we went to, whether they're senior citizens, whether they were, you know, anything. It will tell me because of what we named the site we were going to. Last year, we didn't go door to door. We sat at tables, we had clipboards, we were mainly at food distribution sites, established sites. And in doing so, we talked to a lot of people. They were from all over. So to get our statistics last year on raising of the registered voters, we didn't have a good number on that, but we did have numbers on how many voter registrations we got, how many people we talked to. As I said, we knew how many volunteers, how many volunteer hours using sign up. But we met a lot of the other community organizations that live and service the south side of Syracuse. So we decided we did a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of our organization. And Onondaga Votes is what it's called, but it's under the umbrella of the League of Women Voters. And we found that we had been trying, but we hadn't really gathered the other groups together. We didn't want to make another organization. We didn't want to say to them, you must join us or we are not interested. We wanted to see, our goal was to increase civic engagement within the south side of Syracuse. And we invited, in the beginning, we invited 17 organizations to join us. These are groups that we had met over the past 3 years. It grew to 28 organizations that were invited, because when they heard about it, other ones wanted to join, which was very exciting to us. 22 were actually able to show up the meeting. We allowed them 2 minutes to tell us what their organization was, because what we knew is they didn't know who each other were and what they did, but they're all working with the same population. And I don't know if that's just unique to Syracuse, but we definitely do have our silos here. And we don't like to work together well. So we were very clear. We weren't telling them that they had to work with us. We weren't going to have meetings on a weekly, monthly basis. We wanted to figure out how can we support each other. And for whatever they were doing, most of them were not doing voter registration, voter education, but they did come into contact with people who needed this information. So what we learned was we needed to coordinate with each other. We were running events on the same day, same time, so we were in competition, which was kind of crazy, and none of us got the turnout we wanted. So now we have a community calendar that was already established. We didn't have to do any work on that, except to ask them if they would take the rest of what we were doing. So all the organizations, all 28 organizations, have been told how to get their events on this community calendar so that we can all look at it and encourage our constituents, our volunteers, everybody who's involved to look at that calendar. We also learned that we can provide voter registration and voter education materials so that they don't have to restart the wheel. They don't have to research it themselves. We have some great materials. We've pared some of them down so that they're not quite as complex as a full brochure. It's a one piece of paper, both sides, probably on cardstock most of the time so that it stands up in wet weather when we're walking around. But giving them information on the candidates. That's what we heard a lot about, is who's running? What's this about? Early voting, I was shocked at the people who didn't know anything about early voting last year, before the primaries and definitely before the general election. So we got all that information out, the times, the dates, the locations. We also had the candidates for the areas that we knew we were going to be addressing. And we're working together on events. Very recently, one of our last meetings, some of these organizations have now joined our every other week meeting. We found out that there's enough volunteers at some of these events that we don't have to be involved. And that's okay, because we can do other things. So it's trying to move it along. Vote 411 was on all of our information. And I do have some pictures. It's not, okay. You should be able to see that. This is a bus stop shelter. We had like $15,000 in grant money last year because of the census. But we also did get a grant through New York State League, and we got it through the county, we got it through the city, and a foundation. So this is one of our visuals that telling people that there was an election coming up. Their lives are busy, they're working more than one job. Some of them had no job to go to, kids at home trying to educate them. It was a very tough year for many of our people. We did the billboard. That's where some of the money that we got from the New York State League went to. The billboards cost a little over $5,000. We got 6 billboards, and they do the graphic for you. On the shelter, we had to hire somebody to do the graphic, and we had to get permission to use the photos, which was not a problem. This is one of the groups that helped us out. We worked the primaries last year too. We went to the schools. They were doing the free food, so parents would show up to get that. We were able to help them understand that there was a primary, where it was going to be held, the early voter places and the dates and the times, but we encourage the other groups to advertise themselves. All of the African American women's sororities, alumni sororities, have a civic engagement component to them. And we worked with 3 of these groups within our community, and they want to be doing something. So we're joining forces, and I think that's what's been the biggest part for us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Joan. I know that not all leagues are going to be able to have those $5,000 for billboards.
No.
But the idea, and it would be nice if we all could, but the whole idea of sharing and working to meet other groups and coming to those communities and have those people reaching out is something we can all do. And I'm looking at the time, so what I'm thinking, we want to give all of our presenters their due time to speak, and then we'll save the questions and comments for later. Is that okay with everyone?
Yes.
Okay, so next we've talked about reaching out to communities that are underserved, to be looking at things with the DEI lens. And a lot of our leagues are finding out that there's significant populations in their area or close by where English is not the primary language. I next want to call on Charlotte Weigel, I'm not sure if it's Weigel, from the League of River Towns, who's going to discuss how they successfully put on a bilingual candidate event. And she is going, Char, are you there?
Yep, I'm right here.
Oh, okay. Okay, and she's also going to be having a slideshow while she's talking. Am I correct, Char?
Yeah, what would it be without a PowerPoint, right?
Thank you, Char.
Yeah, and Susan Maggiato, who's theoretically sitting next to me here, is my partner in this. So from the River Towns League. And I just wanted to say, Joan, I'm a Rochester girl. I go through Syracuse almost once a week when I drive home to see my mom. And that was amazing what you did. So that's awesome. So here in Sleepy Hollow, we are a partner village to Tarrytown. If some of you know where we are, right where the Tappan Zee Bridge crosses the Tappan Zee. I should call it the Mario Cuomo Bridge now, but some things stick. So in Sleepy Hollow, by census data, we have about a little bit over 50% persons of color. In reality, it's much higher in our community. The bulk of our community here, over the majority of the community here, are Spanish speaking. And the league has had a presence, but really not within the Spanish speaking community at all. So we had, for the first time, a contested trustee election in Sleepy Hollow. And given those demographics, it just really didn't make sense to do a candidate forum unless it offered the ability for people who spoke Spanish to participate. So I'm just gonna start to share my screen here so you can see, get my PowerPoint up, and hopefully you guys are able to see that, yes? Okay, so I really wanna make kind of 3 points about what we did. One is some myths that I hear a lot about trying to offer language accessible events, not just candidate forums. Some of the enablers that we used that allowed us to do it, and then some of the enhancers that we also used. As you can see from the little logo here we built for the forum, we had a partner, Mothers Out Front, which some of you may know, it's an environmentally minded group. And they actually approached us to say, would you do a candidate forum with us, knowing that the league has a lot of capability in that area. So I could take a little time, but I'm not, because I know that you're pressed for time. I just want to tell you that these are all myths. They are not true. Things that I've heard, though, and you may have heard, maybe like me, you might have said them at one point in time. So in the questions, I can give you some information about why they're not true. But things that you should know It is not true that if you offer a forum in one language, you need to do it in all. It is not true that if you offer a forum in Spanish or in Mandarin, you can't do it because there are many cultures and dialects. It is not true that it's too expensive. It is not true that even though Zoom does have closed caption translation ability, that is a good idea. And most importantly, it's really not true for the League. If we build it, they will come. I'm a Deming girl from way back. I got my MBA in the 80s, and I believe you have to measure your statistics. But in this particular area, we are working with a naive population, naive in terms of having not experienced the League, doesn't know the League's branding. And we are going to have to show up and keep showing up over time in order to build trust and reputation and credibility. So I think the metrics are really important, and I can give you a few as we talk here, but you have to look at this over a period of time and not just once and done in terms of offering it. So those are the myths. So now the enablers. What we did is we used the Zoom webinar capability, which has great technical support to offer simultaneous live language interpretation. Zoom has preloaded labels for like 8 or 9 languages. We were only offering Spanish, even though we do have a sizable population who speak Portuguese and many other languages that are kind of scattered throughout our villages here. And I will give you a solution at the end that we had to allow this to be accessible to people in many different languages. We also used the webinar registration function in Zoom. I played around with it. I had some hits and misses. I'll walk you through that. But one thing that's really nice about that is that there are custom questions and a custom disclaimer you can put in. And then you can also customize the automatic confirmation that someone receives to give them the URL and the access information for the actual candidate forum. I ended up using Google Forms for the Spanish language registration. I'll show you that in a minute. And we had a professional translator who worked on all of our written documents. Fortunately, that was a volunteer. We didn't have to pay someone, but we did hire a professional interpreter to do the actual live event. So here's a picture of the Zoom registration form that I built. You can see our little logo up top. And initially what I did is I was trying to use both English and Spanish on this form because there are custom question fields that you can use to embed information. And the disclaimer that is below the button that you click to register is also fully customized. So you can see my first pass at this was thinking, well, I use one of those custom fields to, in Spanish, give instructions on how you fill out this form that they're seeing in English. And then I, at the end, also used the disclaimer field to give some more information about the event. But in thinking that through, it really does not serve the Spanish speaking community in our area. It ended up kind of being jumbled for people in both languages. So we took a completely different approach to it. These are 2 of our promotional materials. On the left is the flyer that we used in English. And then on the right is what we had the volunteer professional translator do. I could have done it in Google Translate. I don't know if any of you are David Sedaris fans, but if you have read Me Talk Pretty One Day, first of all, I recommend it highly. It's hilarious, but that's what Google Translate does. It's there, but everyone kind of laughs at it, and it's not really a professional translation. So this was done by a human. And you can see I have an arrow pointing to, it's a different URL. So I decided that I had to honor the Spanish speaking community and really create a Spanish registration form. Because Zoom only allows one registration form for a common Zoom event, a URL, and it can be fully in Spanish or fully in English, but I had this problem of needing it in both languages. I created a little URL there that we put through bit.ly to shorten. And if you know a little bit of Spanish, that's actually a little bit of Spanish language there to help people potentially remember it. But people would take a picture of this with their phone, so they would actually have the URL too. And if they went to the URL there, they were taken to a completely Spanish registration form in Google Forms. So that's what you're seeing here. I took the Zoom categories and put it here. On both of these forms, we gave people the opportunity to give us questions in advance, which is a huge advantage of doing a Zoom-based candidate forum. And we had a really awesome committee that came together to really pick from the questions we had submitted, which ones we ultimately used that night. This is not a picture of our candidate forum. It's from the Zoom tutorial that you can look up on how to do the interpretation. But I just wanted you to see what it looks like to somebody who is in a webinar if you've enabled language interpretation. So you see this little icon. I don't know if you're seeing my cursor or not. In our session, we only had English and Spanish, but you just enable which languages you are going to have an interpreter for, and you can do multiple languages at once. When we started our meeting, we had the interpreter come onto the general English language presentation, and in Spanish, he told people how they can find the way to listen in Spanish. Some people who know Zoom, and a lot of people do already, knew exactly where to go. But then Carlos went over to be on the Spanish audio channel, and everything he did was a live simultaneous translation. I can talk to you about some of the technical pieces of Zoom if you're interested in the Q&A about how kind of expression and intonation is picked up there. But that's basically what it looked like from the participant perspective. So easy peasy. A couple of the enhancers that we used, you already saw that we translated all our flyers and promotional material, of course, right, into both languages. When I say promoted on the right, local social media, so in Sleepy Hollow and Terrytown, we have local Facebook groups, and some of them are English-based. And we also have several local Spanish language Facebook groups. So we reached out to the Spanish language Facebook groups and we posted the flyer in Spanish on those and the flyer in English on the others. We worked through, just like you were saying, Joan, how important it is to reach out to people in the community. In Sleepy Hollow, we have a community liaison who is employed by the village, who in working with her on the census became a good friend of mine. And she was instrumental in helping us reach out to the Spanish speaking community. Susan contacted the village administration and asked them, would you please send emails out in Spanish and in English to everyone that the village had on its email blast list to let them know about the forum, and they agreed to do that. We contacted the local high school. We've worked with them a lot, especially on the census work. They were very interested in working on this, but frankly, they're just fatigued right now in our high school, and the kids in the social studies department couldn't pick up another project. It's going to be fruitful down the road. It was not something we could pull off for this particular candidate forum. Similarly, we reached out to our local Catholic church. The pastor of the church is a well-respected community leader. We were not able to get to him in time to have it announced at Mass and in the church materials, but he will do that for us going forward. So we're building some relationships that'll be really important going forward. We also heard from the community that many people in the community actually won't use Zoom, but what they do is they access live stream Facebook on the Spanish language Facebook pages. And we saw that. We practiced several times, one of which our interpreter actually used as a little commercial to say this event is coming because we wanted to practice streaming in Spanish. And I wrote up a little thing for you all that Judy has that explains how we did that technically. So that was really exciting, except we had a technical glitch the night of the event. So while it went perfectly in English, I was working with the community liaison, realizing it was streaming in English. We now know what happened. But what we were able to do to recover from that is two things. We were posting live on the Facebook page, come to Zoom, come right now. And we did have like 8 or 10 people come over and listen in Spanish because they had wanted to hear it in Spanish on the Facebook page and they got that message. The other thing is that we used the self-captioning, the self-service closed captioning interpretation on YouTube. I'm just going to mention that to you. Here's a picture of the event. I think that's excellent photos of Susan and me, right? It couldn't be worse, actually, where I happen to take the screen print. But that's where we all were. This shows just there's about 109 languages, and you can see I took the YouTube video, and if you can see where that yellow arrow is pointing, I gave instructions in the write-up how someone can self-service to see the closed caption, whether they want to see it in Portuguese or Japanese or in Spanish. It's not the best translation, but on the other hand, this is not the League of Women Voters brand here. This is YouTube. We wanted our candidate forum to have a live interpreter because that was branded as the League. This is someone going onto YouTube after the fact and using the YouTube translation services. So it is an affordance that they can have. One thing I forgot to tell you, it's covered up for me here. When I took this screenshot, I can't see because of the way my gallery, there it is. I think there were 670 views on the this Spanish language page when I actually took this screenshot. And we went above 700 by the time that we were done. So it did get a lot of after the fact viewing there. So that was it. And I really appreciate you guys being interested in what we did. And I'm eager to learn from some of the other successes that you all have had as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shar. I'm sure people have learned a lot. Before we go on to the next one, and like Shar said, afterwards, she'll be able to answer any technical questions, right, Shar? And
oh, sure.
If people still need time, we can either have you just speak with Shar, or if we need to do another whole Zoom on just this, if there's enough demand, we're willing to meet everyone's needs. But I think Doug French, who also, he's in Larchmont Mamaroneck. Is he on?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi.
Okay, he wanted to share something because they also had worked with a bilingual candidates event, Doug.
Yeah, just 2 minutes, and I agree with everything Rivertown had done. I think we went through exactly the same exercise. You know, in Portchester, it's 35,000 people, 65% are Spanish speaking. And in 2015, the mayor election, out of 35,000 people, the mayor won with like 1,500 votes. We used to get about 30 people that would attend our candidate forums in an auditorium, and half of those were friends of the family members of the candidates or league people. So we were all about driving outcomes. And what we found is that in this viral digital world, or this virtual and viral digital world, we were able to get staggering numbers that we've never seen before. So the first key learning we did is, yes, we did the Spanish interpretation. Unfortunately, even though we promoted it, we had a live interpreter, not a lot of people showed up for that, but they did go viral after the fact. So I agree with posting it on YouTube after the fact, because that gives you all the languages. And so we ended up with 250 people attended the event, and it's about 1,000 have watched it afterwards. So a lot more impact in the community, because we're all about the voters seeing the candidates in their own words, in their own positions, making them accountable to the public. We were not getting the reach now through this network of doing the virtual. We have control. We don't have to go through the school system to coordinate the dates. We now have control. We can promote it on Facebook, promote it on social media. We've got the asset to put on YouTube. We probably would still consider doing an interpreter, but it was very expensive, and again, just didn't get the reach. So we're going to learn from that. But I think this virtual environment is very advantageous to us to reach the network of voters. And so we're going to do this now. We have 4 school board elections coming up. We're going to do the same thing, same routine.
Thank you so much for sharing. So this being on Zoom and having to learn different ways from doing things in person has certainly helped us reach out to communities and reach out to people that we've never, ever been able to contact before. So this is something that we will continue to do moving forward. Now, I'm sure there are leagues that don't have people that speak other languages, will not need to do candidates nights in other languages, but a lot of them do. The next group that we're looking at is a group that everybody has in their leagues, and we're talking about the youth. And the youth, no matter every year we hear how they're going to have a bigger turnout. And yes, their turnout did increase this year, but they are still the lowest turnout population. So they are still a group that we really, really need to focus on. And Cheryl Crow, Gail Crow, Cheryl Crow's the singer. Gail Crow from Chautauqua is going to tell us about how their league has been working with the college in their area. Gail, are you on?
Yes, I am. No relation to Russell Crowe either.
I'm calling you Cheryl.
That's fine. Yes, I'm Gail from Chautauqua County. We're in Western New York here, pretty much on Lake Erie, about midpoint between Buffalo and Erie, Pennsylvania. During the last election cycle, many of our get out the vote activities were pretty standard garden variety. But one of our more sustained and productive activities was our active partnership with the American Democracy Project at the State University of New York at Fredonia. And I'll refer to that as ADP from now on. The ADP committee was formed with the goal of educating students to become engaged in civic issues through participatory democracy. Also, to encourage students to become well-informed voters and to appreciate the impact that voter participation can have. Fredonia's ADP is part of a network of 250 plus state colleges and universities. Fredonia's ADP is comprised of professors, league members, and student representatives. In a typical year, our league participates in civic engagement indoor tables on campus. Last year, as the campus geared up for its strange COVID fall semester, the committee strategized remotely on what steps to take. Since COVID numbers were low in our county, the college granted permission for one sole league member to host outdoor tables following strict guidelines and protocols. Beginning with campus move-in day in August, a leaguer was regularly positioned on a main traveled walkway between classroom buildings up until the election. Student representatives on ADP saturated their social media and campus email with information about voter registration and the hours that the league would be on campus. They placed signage throughout campus directing them to our site. They directed students to the ADP website, which our committee worked hard to fill with accurate and comprehensive election information. This was done through shared Google Docs and a collaborative approach to creating content. The committee relied on our league to create content in the areas of absentee and early voting and to clarify issues for the variety of students coming to campus from outside Chautauqua County, outside New York State, and even outside the country. Our league was also a conduit between the Board of Elections and campus to ensure every resident hall was supplied with the appropriate number of voter registration forms. Student representatives were empowered to utilize their ADP efforts for academic credit. For example, one young woman put together an impressive video on how to apply for and submit an absentee ballot. The league sat down with her for initial interviews to develop script and ensure that her narrative was accurate with up-to-date info. She was essentially starting from scratch and knew nothing about absentee ballots. She ultimately submitted the video for credit in her broadcast journalism major. She mentioned to us that students, including video production majors, are interested in creating substance to put in their video portfolios. A takeaway here is that majors such as video production even exist, and that certain students welcome a project with open arms. Similarly, the league met with young journalism students as they prepared articles for the school paper about student volunteerism at the polls. These articles had the added result of inspiring a number of students to actually train for and become poll workers at the November election. Meanwhile, our league created its own video featuring President Mary Croxton and Chautauqua County's two Board of Elections commissioners. A decision was made to include a SUNY Fredonia student in the video. She was given the role of asking pertinent questions from a college student's point of view, which the commissioners answered in turn. Once again, student reps on ADP disseminated this video throughout social media to students on and off campus, and we posted it on our league's Facebook and YouTube channel. ADP hosted virtual pre-debate meetups before the presidential and vice presidential debates. Every time students attended an ADP election-themed event, they were entered into a drawing for $50 or $100 towards campus group funding of their choice. This was made possible through SUNY funds. Our league's initiative with ADP resulted in the hosting of 8 voter registration tables involving 7 individual volunteers with additional student volunteers contributing over 50 volunteer hours. We registered in excess of 80 new voters. Our Get Out the Vote video on our league's Facebook page had 31 views. We can't quantify the large volume of info we shared regarding early voting and absentee ballots, nor the assuredly large number of students who may have registered online through the Department of Motor Vehicles, as encouraged by ADP's social media efforts. Our league is pleased to be an active member of ADP. The interaction with enthusiastic young people was especially welcome during the course of the strange COVID year. Chautauqua County is essentially a rural county with a very high poverty rate and all that entails. The campus provides our league with an upbeat counterbalance to our ongoing work in the broader community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gail. And you know what I'm thinking when you're saying about your community and how working with the students is vitality and everything. A lot of our leagues might be struggling. A lot of our small leagues might be struggling, and even middle size or big leagues. And if you have a college and you can work with them, that can invigorate and adds vitality. And there's nobody who can register students and get them out to turn out to vote as much as other young people, you know. So thank you again. We're hearing a common thread, like you go to the communities and you get the help from the people in those communities, whether it's a minority community, a Spanish speaking community, the youth movement. It's really important, those alliances. And I think Huntington, Deb Kosher had something to share also. She wanted a screen share, Laura, of a flyer that they did for a voting flyer. Do you have it, Laura? And Deb, can you tell a little bit, just a few minutes about the history behind this?
All right, so very quickly, everything everybody has presented so far has been fabulous. So thank you all very much. What we did, because our youth committee, again, because of COVID, we weren't able to reach out to any kind of a inaction population. We decided to create a PowerPoint and a video, and we had the young people in our community do the video. It was going to be a PowerPoint on voting and voting rights, the importance to vote, with all the websites they would need, the DMV. And then we were going to narrate it. And then we realized, why should we narrate it? We want youth engaging youth. So we found our league's president, who's on tonight, Liz Thalmeyer, her daughter, Sydney, who's in her later 20s. Then we got a college age student. Then we got a high school student who's our intern. And they did the PowerPoint. So to various schools, agencies, and some colleges, we sent out the PowerPoint, the video, and we realized that during these times when the teachers are getting and principals are getting inundated with emails, we just didn't want our typical well-written, well-done league introductory letter about our program. We said they may just not pay any attention to it. So we went to our intern, Dana, who's a college student, and we said, Dana, look at the PowerPoint and look at the video. And then with your young mind and brain, go crazy with color. It's not exactly the typical league branding, which everything else has in the formal letter, but go crazy, go wild, get all the points out there. So when these teachers open up our important information, they're going to see the amazing flyer that's eye-catching and youth-oriented. So that's what we got the idea. And Dana, within 24 hours, it would have taken our league members 3 days or 3 weeks to make a flyer. She came up with this great video that has been so successful. Another quick thing I'm going to add to it. What we did to the teachers was, why we sent them the PowerPoint separately is that we said to them, this is our video with the girls that we know in our area, but you could use our PowerPoint and you could have your students deliver it, go online and use our PowerPoint and make their own video. And then we asked them if any of the schools that have a Spanish speaking population, feel free to use our PowerPoint and have the girls or the students, girls and boys students, do it in Spanish. And if you do, send it back to us and we'll make sure it's very, very widely spread. So this way we gave them a lot of options. Just copy our video, copy our PowerPoint, have your youth do it. But the idea was send it with a blast that would be definitely eye-catching. And so far it's already been very successful. So this is it. And all the links were live. So all the links, and you can see it, it's the who, what, where. I don't know if Laura can show the bottom part of it. I don't know if she could bring it down. So in a nutshell, it summarizes the PowerPoint and it gives all of the live links that they can just get to. Vote 411, they can get to a voter lookout in the government, they can get to YouTube of our video, and they can get right to the DMV. So that's what we did.
And thank you very much. It certainly is a different flyer than any of us, I think, have been using.
Yes. We worried a little bit that it was off brand, but we said, you know, sometimes COVID, we've had nothing like it before. So sometimes you got to take a little bit of a risk, think outside of the box and, you know, just go with it. But trust me, our PowerPoint is all league colors, and it's very league appropriate. So the only thing we went wild with was our flyer.
Thank you. Okay, and for our final presenter, a lot of the leagues have been trying to reach out and work with groups who are working with people with disabilities. I know a number of you are doing it. And right now I'd like to call on Barbara Gunderson from Buffalo to tell us what their league has done.
Hi. Last September, a parent of a disabled adult, Max Donatelli, got in touch with our local league to ask us to participate in a SANYA's, that's Self Advocates New York State, Get Out the Vote Task Force. So 2 of us went to their meeting, and they were holding them weekly at the time, September. And we listened to what they wanted, and the SANYA's policy and the Center for Independent Living and People Inc. and other agencies that serve physically and emotionally and mentally disabled people. The watchword is nothing about us without us. So in addition to some non-disabled staff, there were staff members who were disabled and task force members who are disabled. And it was really exciting. Of course, this is all Zoom. I have met none of these people in person ever, but I know them pretty well via Zoom. So they asked us, league members, Terry Parks, our president, and Liz Zausmer and I, if we would do 2 presentations on how to vote, when to vote, where to vote, and then we suggested that we add issues-based voting to that as an education piece. And we did one of them in September and another one in October before the registration deadline. So both of them happened before the voter registration deadline. And we relied on SANYA's and Center for Independent Living to make sure that their disabled population, people who were on the Zoom presentations and not, could get computer access to voter registration forms in their counties or through the New York State Board of Elections website. And they were really great about that. And so then, and I don't know, Liz Zausmer is on this meeting. She is the chair of our DEI committee. And our DEI committee began working with the Buffalo NAACP and Western New York SANYs on how to create presentations that would garner a wide audience. And the first one that I think some of you saw was a webinar on February, I think 23rd, on the struggle for the vote from 3 points of view: women, Black people, disabled people. And it was really exciting and really well done. And on May 13th, the DEI committee is working with the NAACP and SANYs to put on Fight for the Vote 2.0, which will be, again, another webinar, Myths and Truths about Elections. And there will be a presenter from each group and from the Erie County Board of Elections telling us what happens to our ballot from the time we slide it into whatever takes its picture, or we drop it in the drop box, or we mail it in until it's certified. So we have an ongoing relationship with SANYs, and that's all of New York State. So there are, and the beauty of Zoom is that if you're disabled, you often have a hard time getting out and about. And during COVID with Zoom, you can sit in your own room and reach a whole large community of people like you and people who are interested in being buddies with you. And that's what I think we are, it's just so much fun every week, every couple weeks to be on a Zoom conference with all these folks from across New York State. And if you want to get in touch with me, I can put you in touch with some of the folks on our task force, and they can probably lead you to groups in your area that you could make common cause with. So we feel so fortunate that Max reached out to us and connected us, and now we're working together. And also BJ Stasio is the Western New York SANYs rep, and he and I were on the Black presenter, L. Nathan Hare. He has a talk radio show, and we were on the talk radio show. I mean, it's just opened up so many opportunities. And that's the whole presentation thing, the Fighting for the Vote thing, is with our DEI committee. But we just had the first of this election cycle's SANY's Get Out the Vote Task Force meetings just on Tuesday. And we're going to meet again on June 8th. And we're organizing presentations to the disabled community about voting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very, very impressive. Everybody who presented had so much to say, and thank you. And now we have said that this meeting was not going to be for an hour because it looked like it was going to go longer, and I wanted to give the people who were presenting time. So we do have 35 minutes left for discussion. People could ask questions. They could also, if they want to share something that their league is doing that they think would be helpful to other leagues. Anybody? Was anybody raising their hand?
I have a question, Judy.
Okay, Barbara.
Are both part 1 and part 2 going to be in English and Spanish and voter's guide?
Yeah, yes, they are going to be in English and in Spanish. Laura knows more about it. Part 1 has gone to the person right now for translation, right? But Laura, for translation into Spanish.
Yep, hang on one second. And for those of you who, can you guys hear me? You can hear me, right? Who can't, I'm going to share my screen and show you, this is what it looks like. We sent out an email to everyone. It's not our usual trifold this year. It's a nice, like one piece of that trifold. It's 3.5 inches by 8.5 inches, and it's printed on cardstock. So it still looks kind of like our voter guide, part 1, with the usual questions. And the most important part, of course, is the dates at the back. We have them at the office. I've already sent out, for those of you who have ordered them already, I've sent them out to you. I got them in the mail, I think, yesterday. So you should be getting them any day now. Either email me, or there was an order form on that I sent out, I think it was on Monday, to all voter service chairs and to presidents if you want to order some. Also, I just sent this to the translators to get it translated into Spanish. I am finding out what the cost is. One idea is that it only be put on Spanish electronically on our website. The other is to have it printed. The problem with printing, I can't wait and see how many people want it, so I have to guess, and then, and I don't really know what that quantity would be. So Judy and I talked about this, and unless it doesn't cost much, or we can print them in the office, or you all can print them, it probably will only be in Spanish on the website. However, part 2, we are doing a part 2, voter guide part 2, which we hope to have available by early July. No promises, but we're working for that. And that's going to be really important this year. This is the year we normally would not do a part 2, because we usually do it when there's statewide offices like governor, attorney general, comptroller, and what am I missing? But anyway, the statewide offices. But because there's going to be, we think, 3 constitutional amendments on the ballot, and at least 1 bond act on the ballot in November. And so we want to have information on the pros and cons of each of those ballot proposals. So we will be printing a part 2. And for those of you who have been with us a while, you know that part 2 also has the information from part 1 in it. So what we've decided is we're going to take part 2 and translate that into Spanish and print that and have that one available in Spanish and on the website. So we're trying to figure this out, but I think unless it turns out that there's a cheaper way to print it, we probably will only have part 1 on the website in Spanish, but part 2 we will have in English and Spanish in paper, as well as on the website. So so just watch for that. Was that? I think that's it. We also have all the first votes updated and printed now in the office. We have those in Spanish. They're on our website too, so if you want to take a look at them and see if you want to purchase those. We also, for those of you who remember, we have the Your Right to Vote series, which there's 5 different trifolds. One that deals with college students, homeless people, individuals with physical disabilities, individuals with mental disabilities, and people convicted of crimes and/or in prison and jail. And there's a separate brochure for each of those populations. We redid those last year and got them printed during COVID, which, and that's why, we haven't distributed as many as we often do, but I just wanted to let you know those are all out there. Those are also on our website if you want to take a look at those and decide if you want to purchase. And you can purchase, 10 of them or whatever you want. It's not like you have to purchase a ton of them. So they're all on our website so you can view them. And if you wanted to order them, just get in touch with me. Was there something else, Judy?
Are those in Spanish?
No, those are not in Spanish. Those are only in English because there's 5 different ones. Margaret Goodfellow, yes, voter guide part 1 is on the website already. It is under the voting page and it's under local league resources. We're trying to put all of our publications under the tab of local league resources. And there's a drop down for league publications. If you click on that, that will show you all the different publications we have. But there, voter guide part 1 is already there, yes.
I just want to say, when Joan was talking about how sometimes they try to do things a little bit differently, like to hand out because league stuff sometimes has too much on it for some communities, our voter guide part 1 now, I think would meet that need, Joan.
The Your Right to Vote, I will tell you that the college student one is the one that's most popular for local leagues. But I will tell you, I had printed 5,000 of each of those, like what, 6 years ago, Judy? And I just finished them last year, except for college students. That one I had to keep going. So for me to think about putting those into Spanish, I'm not even distributing them in English. So I don't think we probably will incur the cost of translating and printing those in Spanish right now. Unless I hear from all of you that you all want one of them or a certain one or something in Spanish, you know, this is where just let us know and we can consider it and look at our budget and see what we can do. But right now those are only in English.
Shar, did you have your hand up? Shar, I thought you
No,
had
no, I think I was just hot.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for any of the presenters or questions about any of the new toolkits?
And Shar, can you send us your PowerPoint and we will share that with everyone. Anytime you do any of these kinds of presentations, people, Joan, I know I have your photos already. I think a couple of them are in the toolkits already.
Get out the vote.
Yeah, and I know that Deb said she would share the flyer, but Deb, if you'd send it to me too, in case anyone reaches out to me. And yeah, anytime you have information like that, please send it to Judy or to me, and we will make sure it gets out to everyone.
I think Gail mentioned that they had something they could share too, right, Gail?
Right.
So send that to us.
Yeah. Jane has a question, Judy.
I do. Hi, everybody. I'm frantically trying to take minutes from all these excellent presentations. I would really appreciate if I have questions, if I can call the presenters tomorrow, if that would be possible. I can do it when it's not a formal presentation better. These were so chock full of information. I just want to make sure the minutes are accurate and reflected. But I think basically the most important thing is make these presentations available to those who are listening. It is impossible really to try to capture everything because I'll be redoing the presentations, which is insane. So
yeah, they were amazing tonight. I think they were just chock full of so many good ideas and everything that, yeah, we want to make sure we get that out to everyone. So please help Jane record it and help us share it with you. So my email, you know, if you guys don't know it by now, you know, it's the easiest. It's just my name, Laura, at lwvny.org. So, and Jennifer also in the office is Jennifer at lwvny.org. We try and make it easy so you don't have to, you know, save it or anything. It's just send anything to us if you can't find Judy's email or something like that. We'll or Jane, you know, let us know and we'll get you connected with whoever you need.
And will where if somebody wants to see the recording?
Jennifer's doing that for me tonight. Jen, can you speak up?
Sorry.
Yeah, I'll convert into a YouTube video tomorrow and then I'll send Judy the link and she can send it to everybody on the voter service committee.
How's that? Okay.
Super.
So everybody on the voter service committee will get it. I just want everybody to meet the wonderful committee So when I call your name, raise your hand. Jane Colvin, who's on the committee and also we're taking the minutes today. Thank you, Jane. Let me see, I'm looking on my screen. Kate Duran. Is Kate
There-
here?
There's 4 pages of screens, Judy. You can't just look at the one.
Okay, that's why, too many people. Oh, well,
Yeah.
that's good. So then they won't be able to see them, right? It
Well-
can't be done. No, I'm sorry. So we've had a great voter service committee. As I said, it's Jane Colvin, Sheila Hermit,
Mhm.
Benson, Kate Duran, Suzanne, the president, Nancy Rosenthal, and Laura's not on the committee, but she has helped us so much. And I think I've given everybody's name, right?
Yes, you got them.
Okay.
And I don't see
thank-
any other questions or hands raised.
Okay, we
Judy.
just wanted to give time because we wanted to make sure that nobody left with having a question. So, which is why we went over the hour. So I hope everybody finds the toolkits and find the Zoom meeting helpful. The State League depends on all of you to share with us your ideas, to let us know when we've done things wrong, to let us know things that you want us to do. And I know that this year we will be probably even more successful than in the past because we have all these new ideas and all these new energies and all these new groups that in the past we haven't worked with, that they're working with now. And that's really the key, the networking and meeting people in other areas and making those connections. So thank everybody so much.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you.